The fire ate through the cedar columns like they were paper, sending up a column of smoke thick enough to choke the moon. Stone cracked under alien plasma, statues of long-forgotten warriors melting into slag. The temple, once silent and proud atop the cold mountain of Hashinaka Ridge, now screamed with each collapsing beam. From his command platform hovering just beyond the slope, Commander Zarek Thorn grinned beneath his bone-white helm. "So this is your history?" he said to no one in particular, his voice filtered through a translator that echoed with contempt. "A pile of rotting wood and rocks built to worship ghosts." Behind him, a Rako officer, taller, leaner, covered in glistening exoskeletal armor, offered a short nod. "Recon confirms no energy signatures. No defenses. Just an empty shrine." "Not empty now," Zarek said, folding his six-fingered hands behind his back. "It's a message. We torch their symbols, we break their spirit." Below, embers floated like dying stars over the scorched soil. The temple bell, blackened but still intact, swung once in the wind. It rang, a hollow, defiant note. Zarek turned away. "Move forward. Strip the villages next. Take the strong. Burn the weak." Beneath the ruin, far below the charred earth, something stirred. Buried under a seal of old-world kanji etched into steel, a cryo-chamber hissed softly, releasing a centuries-old breath. A pulse began. Steady. Unrelenting. The lid opened with a whisper. Takara Saito sat upright, bare-chested and motionless. His eyes, pitch black and calm, took in the darkness. There was no confusion in them. Only readiness. His hand reached instinctively for the katana mounted beside the pod, still sealed in its lacquered scabbard, untouched by time. He stood. The chamber lights blinked off, one by one, until only darkness remained. Above ground, the smoke had settled into a lazy blanket over the ruins. The alien squads had moved on, confident their work was complete. Takaru emerged silently from the remains of the temple's substructure, climbing through what had once been the sacred meditation hall. Now, only ash and shattered tiles greeted him. He did not mourn aloud. He moved with deliberate grace, his body a quiet machine of intent. His black uniform, folded in ceremonial layers within the stasis chamber, hugged his frame like a second skin. A blood-red sash marked him as the last of the Hidden Blade Order. At the altar's remnants he knelt. Ash covered everything. With 2 fingers he traced the faint imprint of a lotus etched into scorched stone. It was barely there. Still he bowed. "Forgive the long sleep," he murmured. "I will correct this." His voice was low, clipped, practiced. Spoken like a man who had waited centuries to say very little. Hours later, he watched from the ridge above the village. The alien convoy was already moving through the settlement. Shouts echoed, metallic and guttural. Lights from hovering transports painted the clay houses in shifting green and red. Resistance was minimal. No soldiers. Only farmers and children, corralled into submission. Takaru's gaze shifted to the perimeter. Guard patrols were loose. Complacent. One Rakul sentry leaned against the support beam of their makeshift tower, weapon dangling at his side. He didn't hear the whisper of air. Didn't see the figure until it was too late. Takaru moved like smoke, silent, unannounced. The katana never left its sheath. One step. A flick of the wrist. A muted gasp. The alien dropped wordlessly, his throat opened in a precise crescent of blood. Takaru caught the body and laid it gently against the platform wall. He pulled the energy rifle from the alien's grasp and inspected it, crude design, no biometric lock. Sloppy. He left it. Weapons without discipline were distractions. Takaru moved from rooftop to rooftop, observing. Every motion calculated, precise. He found the central control unit near the town square, beside a broken statue of an Earth hero long forgotten. Zarek's officers were gathered, boasting in their coarse, screeching dialect about the ease of their conquest. "Still using combustion engines in their outer settlements," one mocked. "Primitive planet. Their defenses haven't evolved since pre-contact. Why bother asking for surrender? Just flatten the rest." Takaru memorized their layout, the access points, the weak spots. He noted the frequency of their communication pulses, the relay position, and the antenna's signal blink, 3 long, 2 short. It fed into something larger. They weren't just looting. They were preparing for a signal jump. A beacon call. This wasn't conquest. It was a test ground. A soft target meant to prove Earth could be broken. Takaru narrowed his eyes. Not today. Later, he returned to the ridge, deep into the cover of wind and shadow. His breath was slow. Centered. He sat beneath a crooked pine, its bark still glowing faintly from residual fire. A child's charred sandal lay nearby, half buried in ash. He didn't pick it up. Instead, he whispered to the wind. They think we're myths. He laid the katana across his lap. Let's make them believe. Night dropped over the valley like a shroud. Fog crept low between the trees, thick enough to muffle footsteps and hide sins. Somewhere above it all, the stars blinked, but down here, among the ruins and flickering patrol lights, only shadows moved. Takaru Saito crouched at the edge of the outer camp, breath still, sword ready. Below him, a Rakul sentry clacked his mandibles, shifting weight between his insected legs. The alien's armor gleamed under a nearby drone's spotlight, but his focus was slack, bored. A branch snapped. Too loud. Too close. The sentry spun, weapon raised, just in time to see a blur descend from above. Takaru's feet struck first, the impact folding the creature's knees. In one fluid motion, he drove the pommel of his sheathed katana into the alien's throat. The body twitched, then sagged into his arms. Not a single scream escaped. He dragged it into the underbrush. The soil drank the silence. Moving deeper, he counted movements. 2 guards near the signal array. 1 patrol cycling near the makeshift prison tents. Another sniper drone floating in slow orbit overhead, predictable, almost lazy. The Rakul underestimated the planet. They weren't used to resistance this quiet. Takaru slipped between their ranks like breath through cracked walls. Each step served purpose. Each breath aligned with movement. Near the center of the camp, a half-collapsed shrine had been turned into a relay tower. Wires spilled from its broken walls. 1 antenna jutted from the rubble like a thorn in the earth. He needed to see what it was transmitting. But first, 2 more guards. He knelt behind a rusted generator and watched. They spoke in guttural bursts, tone dismissive. All this effort for 1 mudball planet? 1 barked. Commander says Earth's got raw plasma deposits underground. Easy pickings. Locals don't know what they're standing on. Weak species. Takaru's lip twitched. He rose as the first turned his back. A single, silent step. 1 hand caught the alien's jaw. The other snapped the neck. Before the second could react, a blur struck his side, Takaru's elbow, sharp as stone. As the alien crumpled, Takaru dragged him into the shadows. 2 down. No alerts. Still ghosted. Inside the relay tower, a blinking console hummed softly. Takaru crouched, his fingers brushing the unfamiliar glyphs. Alien systems. Non-intuitive. But the layout, the language of interface, was still universal. Power. Transmission. Coordinates. He studied the signal logs. 1 outgoing burst every 20 minutes. Triangulated. They were broadcasting not just their position, but a status update. Cleared sector. No resistance. Earth unguarded. His jaw tightened. If that beacon reached the outer fleet, invasion wasn't a matter of if, but when. And this camp was the final report. Back outside, he ducked behind rubble just as a drone passed overhead. Its sensor beams swept across the path he'd just left. 1 heartbeat too late. He waited. Counted. Listened. Footsteps. Light. Fast. Someone was following his trail. He moved, no longer just sneaking, now repositioning. Back in the forest line, he ascended a tree, vanishing into the branches. Below, a Rakul scout crept cautiously along the disturbed undergrowth. Takaru waited until the alien passed beneath him. Then he dropped, silent, swift. The katana unsheathed mid-fall, flashing once before returning to its home. The body hit the ground in 2 parts. Later, on the ridge, Takara knelt beside a small stone lantern, one of the few untouched markers above the valley. He wiped his blade clean, the ritual exact. The old ways mattered. They reminded him who he was. A whisper stirred behind him. He didn't turn. "You always did prefer the quiet kills," said a voice, low and bitter. Takara stood slowly. From the trees emerged a man, scarred, armored in scavenged parts, and very human. Rei Katsuro. Takaru's former squad mate. "Didn't expect you to still be alive," Rei said, crossing his arms. "Or awake. You sold them out. They were already lost. The Council surrendered Earth the moment they opened the gates to the stars. You helped the enemy. I adapted. You slept in a cave, waiting for ghosts to whisper." Takaru said nothing. His hand rested on his sword, not drawn, not relaxed. "They're sending reinforcements," Rei continued. "Zarek's just clearing the landing zone. You can't stop that." "Maybe not," Takaru said. "But I can stop him." Rei laughed. "You think honor still matters? You think one blade in the dark will change the tide?" Takaru turned to go. "It's not honor I fight for." "Then what?" He paused. "Look back. Memory." That night, the camp descended into quiet paranoia. Guards doubled. Drones scanned more frequently. Whispered fears spread between sentries like fog. "The shadow returns. They say it's the old Earth gods." "No. Just a man." "Same thing." One by one, confidence unraveled. And far above, perched beside a bell that no longer rang, the last ninja watched, waiting for the signal he would silence. Rain came without warning, thin, cold, and constant. It dripped from the trees and rooftops, soaking the valley and cloaking footsteps in a sheen of silence. The village sat beneath it like a corpse, limbs bound, mouth gagged. No one resisted now. No one dared. Commander Zarek Thorne stared out from the high platform of his command hub, twin eyes fixed on the distance. His claws tapped against the steel railing. "Something is hunting us," he muttered. A Rako officer behind him stiffened. 3 patrols gone. No reports. No noise. Just nothing. And how does prey strike without being seen? The officer hesitated. The humans whisper of a warrior. A relic. They say the mountain awakened it. Zarek turned slowly. "I don't care what the locals say. I care that I've lost 6 soldiers, 1 scout drone, and our outer relay post in less than a night." His voice was ice over acid. "Do your job. Track it. End it." Takaru was already inside the camp. He moved through the storage compound, an old rice granary now filled with alien weapons and rations. No one suspected the shadows between crates. No one saw the slit tarp or the dark eyes behind it. He found the plans in a control tablet carelessly left on a crate. The Rakul had mapped out their expansion. The temple ruins were just the first node. Their real target lay deeper, Neo-Tokyo 3's power grid. If they controlled it, they'd black out half the continent. And they had a timetable. 36 hours. Takaru's expression didn't change. But his fingers tightened around the hilt of his blade. He had less than 2 nights. Near the edge of the camp, a patrol staggered back in. One Rako limped, his lower arms seared. "The hunter," he gasped. "He moves without sound, killed Juzak in 1 strike, vanished before I turned." Zarek slammed him to the ground, claw crushing his chest. "Did you see him?" "No, Commander. Only his shadow. Only silence." Zarek released him. "Then fear him. But do not fail me again." He gestured. 2 drones rose from launch cradles, sleek and predatory. Each deployed twin recon eyes and thermal sweepers. "Release the scorch crawler," he ordered. "But Commander," a tech protested, "it hasn't been field tested on organics." "I said release it." Back in the forest, Takaru ran. He had no time for rest. He needed leverage. Weakness. He knew the terrain better than the Rakul ever would. The valley had hidden corners, half-buried ruins older than the stars. He slipped through them like ink through water. He found what he needed at dawn. A crumbled listening post from the pre-contact wars, buried under moss and rust. Most of it was dead metal, but the solar core still hummed faintly. Takaru knelt, slicing open the casing. The inner grid pulsed blue. He pulled a fragment, an amplifier node. Small. Stable. It would serve. By nightfall, the Rakul were on edge. Drones circled endlessly. The sound of buzzing never stopped. Lights pulsed across the treetops, flickering and confused. In their center camp, a human trader walked confidently past the guards. Rei Katsuro. Zarek looked up from his war table. You said he'd run? Zarek growled. You said there'd be no resistance. Rei shrugged. He's one man. He's a ghost. And he's tearing through my army. Rei leaned forward. You want my help? Give me a squad. I'll bait him out. Zarek's eyes narrowed. And why should I trust a man who betrayed his own? Because I know him, Rei said quietly. He taught me. Takaru watched from above the granary as Rei led a squad into the forest. 4 Rakul warriors. Heavily armed. Wide formation. Rei's voice rang through the trees. Takaru! I know you're listening. You always were. Silence. Come out. Let's end it. Still nothing. Rei motioned. His soldiers spread out. But Takaru was already moving. Not toward the bait, behind it. He descended on the outermost Rakul like a hawk. No mercy. A blade across the neck. The alien dropped without a cry. The next turned, but too slow. A throwing knife embedded deep into the chest plate, shorting the respirator. Panic erupted. One Rakul fired wildly. Rei ducked, cursing. Hold formation, damn it! Takaru leapt from the trees, rolling under a plasma shot and rising behind the third soldier. A clean upward strike, severed spine. Then silence again. Only one Rakul remained, weapon trembling. Takaru stepped into view. No mask. Just eyes like still water. The alien dropped its rifle. Takaru caught it midair and shattered its jaw with the hilt. Rei stepped forward, hands raised. You never were one for speeches. Takaru kept his blade steady. You know why I'm here. They've already called for backup, Rei said. Fleet's en route. Then I'll intercept it. You can't stop a war, Takaru. He tilted his head. I'm not stopping a war. He stepped back into the dark. I'm starting one. That night, the Rakul awoke to screams. A high tower burst into flame. Their beacon gone. Their coordinates corrupted. And standing in the smoke, just long enough to be seen, was the man they all feared. Clad in black. Blood on his sword. Gone again in the blink of an eye. The forest was burning now, not with fire, but with energy. Alien drones cut through the mist with beams that hissed across tree trunks, slicing branches and gouging the earth. They weren't searching anymore. They were hunting. Takaru didn't run. He moved with intent, quiet, cold, precise. His body slipped between thermal scans, his heat masked by a mixture of river mud and crushed fernroot paste. An old technique. Untraceable. Undetectable. He crept through an ancient ravine littered with ruins from Earth's first resistance. Crumbled metal frames, rusted rails, shattered transport bikes, memories of another war lost to time. This place had seen blood before. And it would again. From the ridge above, the scorched crawler finally emerged. A beast of metal and fire, four-legged, low-slung, pulsing with molten heat beneath its synthetic skin. Its sensors swept in 360 degrees. Its breath steamed from twin exhaust vents like the snort of a warhorse. But what made it dangerous wasn't the armor, it was the logic core. It learned. It adapted. Takaru watched from a low hollow in the rock. One move too early and he'd be ash. He didn't blink. The drone pack flanked behind it, 3 scout units with overlapping coverage. No blind spots. But he didn't need an opening. He'd make one. On the far side of the slope, the ruins of a torii gate marked the edge of a long-forgotten shrine. The Rakul had ignored it, just another crumbled relic. But Takaru remembered. He'd trained here once. He slipped beneath the stone beam and pulled loose a rusted floorboard. Beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth and prayer paper, waited the tools his master had left, emergency caches sealed in faith and silence. Explosives. Steel wires. An ion disruptor carved from alien scrap long ago. He took only what he needed. The storm would come soon. Night fell like ink. The crawler moved deeper into the canyon, its sensors pinging erratically. Takaru's presence flickered, now here, now gone. The drone logic flagged the pattern as ghost interference. It recalibrated. Too late. A wire snapped from the trees, tight as piano string, wrapping around the lead scout drone's wing. A pulse detonator went off a breath later, disabling its rotor midair. It crashed into the crawler's side, triggering its flank shield. The beast roared, venting heat, wheels spinning for position. Takaru struck from above, blade angled like a spear, driving it into the exposed exhaust port. The steel screamed against synthetic alloy. The crawler staggered. He leapt free before the back blast could cook him alive, rolling behind a broken shrine stone. The explosion was immediate. Fireball. Shrapnel. The force knocked him off his feet. His back hit the slope hard. Darkness rushed in. He woke coughing smoke. His left side burned. Blood soaked his sleeve. But the crawler was gone, just a twisted carcass, limbs twitching, logic core fizzled into slag. He pulled himself to his feet. No time to rest. The transmission tower was still active. Backup fleets would arrive in hours. That beacon had to die. He climbed higher. Midway up the ridge, footsteps approached. Not alien. Too grounded. Too human. He drew his blade and pressed into the rock. A figure emerged through the fog, tattered coat, limp in the left leg. "Ray. You're bleeding," he said. "I've bled worse." "You think this changes anything?" Ray asked. "They'll come. You know that. Then I'll meet them. They'll flatten this valley. Then I'll bury them in it." Ray stepped closer. "You can't win. But you can disappear. Like before." "I didn't wake to disappear." Ray hesitated. "I tried to save people. You chose silence. You chose survival. I chose purpose." The pause between them stretched. Then Ray dropped his pack. Inside, a map. Marked with alien energy lines. "Main core's under the command tent," he said. "He's got it shielded." Takaru blinked. "Why help me?" "Because you never lied to me." "And they did." He turned away. "If you survive, don't look for me." "I won't," Takaru said. Ray vanished into the trees. Takaru pressed onward. The alien command post stood at the summit, heavily guarded, layered in drones, surrounded by electric fencing. Beneath it, the pulse beacon blinked steady. A heartbeat of invasion. Takaru studied the pattern. 2 guards on rotation. Thermal shields in 15-second intervals. One weak point, the southern drain hatch. He moved. Through mud. Over stone. Under firelight. He timed it perfectly, rolled beneath the fence just as the shield cycled. Inside, silence. Just humming. The air thick with alien stench. He reached the core chamber, pulsing with blue light. A wall of armored glass stood between him and the beacon. No time for subtlety. He pulled the ion disruptor from his belt, slapped it to the wall, and backed away. Tick. Tick. Boom. The glass imploded. Sirens erupted. He sprinted in. The beacon trembled, already charging for its next signal. He drove his blade into the coil, then slammed the pulse detonator on the base. 1 second. 2. The core burst. The entire summit shook. And above it all, from his ship, Zarek watched in disbelief. "Seal the ridge?" he snarled. Kill him! Kill everything! But Takaru was gone. Only the smoke remained. And the bodies. Dawn broke over Hashinaka Ridge in silence. Not the silence of peace, but of aftermath. Smoke curled from the shattered beacon tower, still glowing with heat. The forest around it stood half-burnt, wet from rain, smelling of ozone and ash. Takaru's Saito moved through the ruin with a limp. His arm was torn, ribs bruised, and blood traced down his side, but he kept walking. The mission wasn't over. Commander Zarek Thorn had not fled. Not yet. From the ridge above, the alien flagship remained anchored in low orbit, dark and watchful. Shuttles moved between the vessel and the ground, some carrying supplies, others troops. But now, everything was slower. Hesitant. The Rakul no longer spoke with confidence. Whispers of the shadow had become doctrine. Takaru reached the command trench at the ridge's crest. It was guarded. He expected that. Two Rakul in full armor, standing at attention, rifles ready. He didn't break stride. They noticed too late. He ducked low, rolled beneath the first burst of plasma. Steel flashed. The first fell with a blade across the midsection. The second fired, missed by a finger's width. Takaru stepped in, twisted the weapon out of its grip, and drove the hilt into the alien's throat. A single strike. Instant. He dragged both bodies aside and stepped into the trench. Inside stood Zarek, alone. He removed his helm as Takaru entered, revealing a face of cracked bone and sinew, half organic, half polished rage. So, Zarek said, voice like gravel under steel. You're the insect. No, Takaru replied. I'm the reminder. Zarek's lip curled. You are nothing but a myth clinging to dying rituals. Do you believe honor will stop my fleet? No. But it will stop you. The alien drew twin plasma blades, each pulsing with energy, longer than Takaru's katana, heavier, brutal. Then let us end this farce. They circled each other inside the trench, a ruined shell of scorched stone and humming consoles. Zarek struck first, downward arc, meant to crush. Takaru slid beneath it, blade grazing the alien's side. Sparks flew. No blood. Zarek spun, one blade cutting wide. Takaru blocked with the spine of his sword, absorbing the impact with his shoulders, then riposted, slicing a thin line across Zarek's leg. Your weapon's useless, Zarek growled. It doesn't need to kill. It needs to remind you you're mortal. Zarek lunged. Takaru sidestepped, pivoted, slashed the back of Zarek's knee. The alien stumbled. Then Zarek roared. A wave of force exploded from his suit's core, energy fields pushing Takaru back into a wall. His lungs emptied on impact. Zarek closed in. I have conquered 5 worlds, he hissed. You are one man. One knife. Takaru didn't answer. He drew a hidden blade from his boot, flung it. It caught Zarek in the shoulder, embedding between armor joints. He roared, ripping it free. Takaru rose. You lost the moment you underestimated the ground you stand on. He feinted left, drew Zarek into a wide strike, then spun inside the arc, his katana cutting a clean line from clavicle to sternum. Zarek fell. Not dead. But finished. He choked out a laugh. You've won nothing. My kind will come. Then send them a message. Minutes later, the trench's transmission rig came alive. Takaru activated the signal manually. It crackled to life, frequencies aligning. On board the orbiting fleet, Rakul commanders paused. The message came not in their language, but in symbols. A single image. Zarek, defeated, kneeling. And a lone human figure standing behind him, sword in hand. No threats. No demands. Just proof. Takaru left Zarek alive. Broken, shamed, but breathing. Let the legend spread. Sometimes survival stings worse than death. By noon, the fleet began to retreat. First the scout vessels. Then the supply ships. Finally, the flagship turned away, its engines igniting slowly, climbing back into the void. The invasion had ended, not with an army, not with a battle, but with a single blade in the smoke. Later, under the skeleton of the burned temple, Takaru stood in silence. He held the bell rope in one hand, gently lifting it. He rang it once. A deep, low sound rolled through the valley. From the trees, villagers emerged. First a few. Then dozens. Children clung to mothers. Old men wept without sound. Takaru turned but said nothing. A boy approached, no more than 8. His face smudged with soot, eyes wide. "Are you a warrior?" Takaru knelt. "I am a student." "Of who?" He looked at the ruins. "Of those who came before me." That evening, he stood alone where the altar once rested. He buried his sword beside it. The war was over. But peace would need more than steel. It would need memory. And someone to protect it.